She's a beautiful woman.
Damn right she is, And tonight, hey, what's going on, kids? We're talking about
your mother.
She's a beautiful woman.
For an hour, we'll be talking about your mother and the things that she does for us.
You have to see her. When she's at work, it's truly beautiful.
Yeah, she quirks. No, we're talking about the other Hulk.
The one who dabs?
Andrew Dabs? What? I don't know.
Come on, wrap it up.
No, we're talking about the incredible, not the sensational, the incredible Hulk, the unstoppable Hulk, the one, the only, Bruce Banner.
Yeah.
Issue number 1 of 6 actually, which was I think those collected by themselves 1 through 6 in their own trade, or are they parted? So they're not. I thought maybe you get an omnibus and you get those first 6 plus something else.
Well, you can.
Yeah.
But the first Hulk Masterworks had those 6 issues.
And that's from 1962.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas 100, then after those 6 issues, they went to issue 102, right? Legacy number.
No, that's ask me. That's why I'm here.
Yes.
The Hulk was actually Marvel's first failure.
Really?
It only lasted 6 issues. Then after a few guest appearances, they put him in the Avengers, and he appeared in Fantastic Four 12, then Journey into Mystery 112, again in Fantastic Four 25, and a couple of other scattered appearances. But then he got the feature in Tales to Astonish, which up to that point had just been a Giant Man story, plus the second half was usually either Jan telling orphan kids a story, or like Tales of the Watcher kind of thing. And then with issue 59 of Tales to Astonish, the Hulk and Giant Man got into a fight, and then issue 60, the Hulk started as a feature that ran through issue 101, and then
was that the magazines?
No, it's comics. Tales to Astonish.
Oh no, there was comic magazines too.
That wasn't until years and years later.
Oh, okay.
And when in 1968, when the magazine distribution deal with National ended, and Marvel was allowed to expand their line, that was when Iron Man, Captain America, Submariner, Hulk, Nick Fury, Captain Marvel, and Doctor Strange all got their own titles. 3 of them kept the numbering from the old titles, one of them being the Hulk, and they were on issue 1 of Tales to Astonish would have been issue 102. That just became Hulk 102.
Okay. And then Defenders was like the 70s, right?
72.
Okay.
Well, actually, the first appearance was in Marvel Feature number 1. That was in November or December of 71. So, yeah.
So, what was this your first book that you bought? Or was this one of the few? I mean, what was your first Hulk book that you got?
Well, I was born in 1962.
You're
still young for to be there on the ground floor. No, my first issue of the Hulk was 199.
Okay.
I think it was May of 76 was the cover month. I think it was either 199 or 200. I can't remember, but
I always forget that you were born in 62, that you just weren't 62 back then.
But the first Marvel comic book I ever bought, the first 2 were Fantastic Four 167 and Iron Man 83. The Hulk was in that Fantastic Four. That was the issue that we did.
Yep.
Where he and Ben teamed up against the rest of the Fantastic Four.
Let's get together.
Pixel's a nice houseboat. You can hear the storm outside. You see him rocking. That's a hurricane throwing him.
Welcome to Florida. No, I mean, with this, I think for the retrospective, I think this was my first time going through the book in its entirety. I think I've started it before, but it just kind of dropped off. But now, going through it all, who doesn't love a story where you beat commies, huh?
And you'd love the first couple years of Marvel.
I mean, you got he beat the communists, and then he got helped out by it.
Marvel Comics, from beating commies to being commies.
Oh no.
As Pixel says, I'm sorry. Sure.
So no, I mean, with this issue, I mean, there's a lot of promise. I don't. Can you give us some insight? Why do you think that it failed so?
Well, remember at the time that Marvel was only allowed to publish a couple magazines, a couple comics. They were new to this, and the Hulk was the second thing they tried. After I think Fantastic Four was on issue 4 or so, 4 or 5, give or take. And I think that maybe it was too, like, the Fantastic Four had Reed, Sue, and Johnny to balance out the thing. So there was other super powered characters that looked human. Maybe the fact that the Hulk turned in, that it was Bruce Banner turning into the Hulk, maybe people thought it was too Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
I mean,
maybe it was, maybe when, because I think it lasted about another 2 issues after Journey into Mystery and Amazing Fantasy 15, or maybe they just didn't know what they had on their hands, and maybe it was a quick axe. I've probably read at some point what happened to it, but why it was canceled, but I don't know for sure.
I mean, looking at the first issue, we just read on the channel. You can go check out that stream after you're done with this. If you didn't watch it,
Puppets read it, yeah.
Yeah. Seeing him turn into as I was pointing out one time, he actually turned into a Gray Hulk.
The first issue.
In the first issue.
Yeah, I think that was a coloring error. I think he was supposed to be green from the get-go.
Yeah. And you see him, he's still Hulk, but he still has faculties. He's not Savage Hulk, as we know later on he'd become like that. So it's kind of a different take for me, seeing him like still. He was slowly going, I guess you could say he was slowly losing his intellect, becoming more and more beast.
The original concept was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Yeah.
And that's, the Hulk, obviously, his personality resembled that of Mr. Hyde, which was a stark contrast from Dr. Jekyll and Dr. Banner.
Frankenstein, too.
Now, when the character, when he was in his 6 issues and those other guest appearances I'll talk about, he was basically just like an angry, like what he represented, the anger that dwells within all of us, only with the power to do something about it.
Yeah.
Now, it was only after the character, the Hulk got the series in Tales to Astonish that they sort of started playing with his personality. There was a story arc where Bruce Banner was shot in the head right as he was turning into the Hulk.
Yeah.
And he retained his intellect, but he knew the second he turned back into Dr. Banner, the bullet would kill him.
Jeez.
So there was things like that, but then over time, they kind of came. If he was going to stand the test of time, he was going to have to be somebody you could, if not relate to, sympathize with. It's hard to sympathize with a monster who is just, out of control anger machine. So they kind of turned him into almost like a man monster with a childlike innocence who gets angry like a child. So that was kind of what they morphed him into. And that's the default personality to this day. I mean, if you ask a normie who the Hulk is, they're going to say Hulk smash.
Yeah.
That has permeated pop culture in a way that Professor Hulk never will, the way Peter David's version never will, the way Joe Fixit never will. And there's nothing to do about that, but that's kind of how that personality evolved.
See, now my I never really read a lot of the Hulk comic book serial. We talked to the retrospective on the Bachelor Party. That was probably my first or second or third Hulk story that I've actually read over the years. My exposure to the Hulk was actually the Bill Bixby show, which I know is different from the comic books. But as far as the loneliness, the guy trying to cure himself, because he can't live a normal life. I imagine that was a big aspect in the comic too, right?
Yeah. Now, the TV series, for whatever reason, I don't know if it is Lou Ferrigno's speech impediment was why he never spoke. Or maybe they figured it just would come across as being dumb.
Yeah.
But whatever the reason, yeah, the Bruce was always looking for a cure. And that was the storyline that could always be revisited.
Yep.
And was. But I said, the Hulk has a fascinating history. I mean, he's, once Tales to Astonish, 60 or 59 came out, there was a Hulk every month from that point, pretty much from that point to today. So that character has definitely survived and thrived, even if it's never been I think Al Ewing might be the first one to ever have a #1 with it, which is kind of unfortunate because I heard that was a very good run, but he's had other very good runs, and so that's But I definitely recommend get around to that eventually. There's some good stuff there.
Yeah, just going through it. There's also the snapper car of the issue, Mr. Rick Jones. I'm an orphan. Nobody's loved me before.
Well, you also got to remember, they're the first appearances of a lot of characters were dramatically altered pretty quickly, because when you're throwing these original stories, that like Ben Grimm was a villain when the Fantastic Four premiered. He was angry, resentful of Reed, and wanted his woman. And when he was the one that turned into the monster, he was just nonstop anger. But the letters started coming in, and not the ones Flo wrote to herself, but from actual fans saying, we like this guy. So over the course of the next couple of years, they softened him up and made him into
the ever-loving thing.
The ever-loving blue-eyed thing, yeah. And that's, as I said, so they learned to adapt. Where that applies to Rick Jones is Rick Jones was representing every wasted teenage youth of the era.
You know what he reminded me of when I was reading some of this stuff? He kind of reminded me of Jerry, Perry White's kid, in a sense.
But once this got rolling, they realized Rick Jones could be the quintessential superhero sidekick type. So they had him form a group called the Teen Brigade. Not the one that America Chavez was in.
Yes, I know.
But it was so old, it was a bunch of kids with ham radios. And so that's how he got involved with the Avengers.
Wasn't that the kid with the Guardians and the Superman? The Guardian, there's a group of kids like that too. They had a bunch of teenagers.
The Newsboy Legion.
Yeah, the Newsboy Legion.
Yeah, and that predates the Teen Brigade by a couple of decades.
I know.
But so they did. Marvel did a lot more with Rick Jones than DC ever did with Snapper Carr.
Yes.
Snapper Carr didn't really make a comeback until the Hour Man series, I believe, in the early 2000s. That was probably I'm pretty sure he was in that.
I remember Snapper Carr coming back in the Justice League cartoon. He was a news reporter. I was like, who the heck is this guy? He's a Snapper Carr. I'm like, that's a weird name for a guy, a journalist, And so until you go back and you're like, wow, he actually was a character like part of the Justice League.
But one thing Marvel did very well was they took the original concepts and morphed them into more relatable, more interesting versions of the original that made their first appearances.
Yeah, like with any good property, it's going to have to grow and change. Whether it has a solid start or not, clearly this had a rough start. But with this, you can see where it could take the turns that it ultimately will, or has, I suppose I should say. I mean, even in this, we got a peek at Hulk being very, very woe is me because he doesn't feel like society has anything for him. It's just weird that he already has that. Like when reading the issue, it's weird that the Hulk, who has just been created, has this sense that society is never going to accept me when he has no experience with society.
Well, he's not a completely different person originally.
It's kind of mixed.
So he's kind of probably knows enough. And when they were doing these books, there's no guarantee there'd be a second issue. So you kind of throw everything against the wall and see what sticks. In this case, they were only off by 5 because I said it did not last long.
They Marty's pointing out that Rick Jones pretty much went from man to man to man. He went from Hulk's sidekick, to Captain America's sidekick, and then he went to Marvel, Captain, Marvel's sidekick.
And that's another, the original Captain Marvel series. I think Rick merges with Marvel in, I think, issue 17. And how that comes about is and this is why Marvel was so good in those days. The Red Skull had gotten his hands on the Cosmic Cube and switched bodies with Captain America. So Red Skull is masquerading as Cap. Yeah, poor Cap is the Red Skull. That was the story that led to the introduction of the Falcon, because Captain America met the Falcon as the Red Skull. But Falcon, Sam Wilson didn't know any better because Cap figured out he could take off the Red Skull mask, so he was Johann Strauss underneath. But Falcon didn't know him from Adam. But the reason why I'm saying that is Rick runs into Cap, not knowing he's the Red Skull, and the Red Skull basically just like backhands him and says, "Get away from me, you brat." Because the Red Skull doesn't know who the hell he is.
Yeah, so
Rick Jones thinks, okay, so Cap doesn't want anything to do with me anymore. Drifts into a more or less a symbiotic relationship with Captain Marvel because they literally sharing atoms.
Well, yeah, the nega bands that connects them together.
Yeah, I mean, there's a rich history for Rick Jones.
Jackson, if we weren't on, where would you be?
That's true. It's just a matter of seeing the early things with Rick Jones. It can get a little difficult for me.
I'm just glad. that Rick Jones is still around to today. I'm just kind of glad that people remember that. Hey, this is actually a character. He wasn't just like a throwaway side character, and I was done. I would almost say out of we had Snapper Carr, we have Rick Jones, and then we had, what was the other one? It was with Plastic Man. His own little sidekick, and so did Alan Scott. Out of all the sidekicks, Rick Jones is probably the most popular.
Oh, I don't know if I'd say that, because characters like Woozy Winks and Doiby Dickles in the Golden Age were people, I'm sure, that bought those comics for their hijinks.
But I mean, right now, though, not back then, a different story, obviously. Yes.
I don't know. Roberts is asking a question. What are the best Red Skull runs? I would say the one we were just talking about was excellent, because how do you beat somebody that can literally do anything he thinks, because that's what the Cosmic Cube allowed him to do? In the way Captain America's able to not only survive but win, makes for a very good story. There was in the mid 80s there, and this is a one-off, where Magneto captures the Red Skull and basically pays him back for being a Nazi piece of shit, and leaves him in a dark, dank cell with no way out and nothing but jugs of water, and just basically gloats over him, and he just like floats out of the up the silo and out, and there's nothing the Red Skull can do about it. Of course, he's Red Skull. He eventually gets out, but the Brubaker run is a very good Red Skull storyline. So they're not hard to find. There's been a lot of great ones. Those are the ones that come to mind first.
All right, Pixel, you're just.
I'm just staring at the cover because like
you could just show it too. You know that you have the capability.
I have the capability.
We have the technology. We can make it happen.
We have the technology. Yeah, no, I can't because no, we have this conversation when we go to England teams from time to time. There are iconic covers in existence, and this is one of those. Like, even though it's obviously gray, not green. It's
Ronnie pointed out it was meant to be a gray, but there's a coloring error, and then I decided to change the color to green.
Yeah, green for printing reasons, but it doesn't really matter. But looking at it, like, it's
everyone's
truly
on there.
one of,
the whole cast is on there. Ross, Rick is on there. I think he's in the left somewhere. Or
where's Igor? I don't see Igor.
Igor doesn't matter apparently.
There you go.
Which sucks because he's a good guy.
No, he's not. He's a spy. He's reporting to the commies. It's not a good look, Bankman. You don't understand.
I was on a good look. I mean, the Hulk turns into a monster like that. Now, the other thing too is that look how big he is on the cover, but when you see him in the comic book, he's not that huge.
No. And I think that actually is an element that this cover has an impact on. I mean, the size of the Hulk does shift later on.
He is not bigger on the inside.
He becomes this big boy that we see before us.
Yeah, and one of the things that I always liked about the character was what was a mistake that was corrected in the second issue. Someone thought there's something there and kind of created the Joe Fix-It aspect of his personality. Because one of the things that they've done with the Hulk over the years is they've delved into the why was the Hulk sometimes this angry, very angry version of Bruce Banner? Why was he childlike? Why was all the different personalities he exhibited over the years? And they kind of delved into the reasons for this. Well, one of those personalities was Joe Fix-It. So when they brought the Gray Hulk back for about 30 issues during Peter David's run, so they brought him back right before he took over. Then he did something with it for, like I said, a couple of years, and those are fantastic stories. And because I know you guys are, reading the new Fantastic Four, but if you get a chance, go back and read some of those Joe Fix-It issues, because Peter David. That's why when I read his personality in the first issue, I said, "Man, did he forget what he created?" Because it just didn't have the same bite. But,
or maybe he just wasn't allowed to do certain things.
I doubt if it was that. But but if you want the a really, really good Hulk story that'll make you laugh your ass off, I think it's in the 370s. It's a Christmas issue where the Mr. Fix-It character fights the Rhino, but they are pretending to be department store Santa Claus and an elf, and they're basically doing it to this little girl that doesn't believe in Christmas, and they're pretty much doing it for her. And like I said, you just have to read it. Like I said, you will. There are some scenes in there that are absolutely hysterical. I think Joe, Wes, and I did a retrospective on it. Definitely worth checking out. but it's one of the single best comics I've ever read.
You need to start putting these on a list and just sending it to the group so that way we can just mark it. December's right around the corner. We need things to read.
So here's another thing. It's as far as the Hulk, or the animated Hulk 9, how long did that last? Did they continue with that when they relaunched this after 102?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Where Bruce turns into Hulk at night. Did they continue with that theme going into 102 and continue on?
No, that they got away from that.
So the first time they brought that back would be the Immortal Hulk, right? With Al Ewing?
No, I think Joe Fixit. They brought that back.
Okay.
Because he was Joe Fixit at night.
Okay. I mean that does track. That's a very werewolfish aspect, and I don't like it very much. But so glad that changed. I do like the idea of the man who has to keep a rein on himself to keep his anger in check. Otherwise, he will become something monstrous.
Like it was fun because they show and even one of the soldiers says no. It's like he was some kind of or a giant bear in a like a coat, a costume, human clothing is torn. I was thinking first thing popped in my head was like Werewolf by Night, which would have come out until years later.
It is funny how simple some of those stories are because again they were just finding their way because Stan had been doing 6-page monster stories for years, monsters and westerns, and so it was probably not the easiest transition to doing superheroes and some of the tropes that you would see in his horror writing. Can you send E a link?
Can we send E a link?
Yeah. I asked him if he wanted to come on.
Sure, I can do that.
No, we don't mind.
Is he going to turn into a giant bear?
I mind, how dare you. Yeah.
Or I forgot the
All
first
right.
one. What was he?
Well, get your words in now before he takes over the stream, okay, guys?
Well, that's why I brought him on. I want to sit here and watch the rest of it. No, I'm kidding.
Well, Pixel, you can go through. You can see some of the pages. Go through here.
Well, I'd have to pull up the actual book, so give me a second.
Oh, I thought you did. That's why you're sharing.
No, that was from the link. I had the wiki open.
We don't go by
While he's
wikis.
doing that, though, I'll show you what this was the original Marvel Masterworks published in 1989.
That's cool.
That's what I have it in. It is very cool. It's in 6 issues, and I love it looks like fake marble.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is very cool.
Who's even got the covers on the back too?
Yeah. Well, that's what all the Masterworks did. And to this
Nice.
day, they do it.
No, I'm surprised they've been doing with Marvel today. Has been doing with Avengers. They even did with Thor. I've seen those journey into. I haven't seen the Hulk yet in the little mini Master Marvel works.
Mini Master Marvel.
Didn't realize that.
Marvel Masterworks because they got the Journey into Fantasy, I think it's called, or the one for Thor.
Journey into Mystery.
Journey into Mystery. They have that. They have Avengers in these little boxes.
Hey, I really don't need to be on full screen.
No, we need to stare at you.
I was staring at Sonya. Sorry.
Oh, I found one at the store that's an Art Adams cover that's really cool too.
Oh, I was talking about the one behind you, but
Oh, no, that's why I said that. This John Romita Sr.
Oops, wrong one.
I've never seen him.
All right, so
I guess E didn't want to join us. He just wanted the link.
Yeah, that's what it is. And I love. Was this the shape of every rocket? Just always, just.
Well, there were probably, with the men folk out spending all their time writing and drawing comics, there was probably some frustrated women folk in their lives. So that's why every rocket just looks like a. Never mind.
Well, they're compensating. I mean, I'm surprised at the like Thunderbolt Ross has a presence very clearly. Yet here, I almost expected more. Like it's like J. Jonah Jameson and Spider-Man. He stands out. There's something there that you hook into. And even when he's constantly changing the name of his company, his newspaper, it's still J. Jonah Jameson.
Well,
That's what's important.
He called Bruce Banner a milksop. He put his daughter in her place. Said this is man talk. I mean, yeah, he was a man of the times.
Well, just like Jameson would have some of those times he'd have like a moment of a lapse where he actually has a heart. It shows that they did it with Thunderbolt Ross over the years too.
Oh yeah, well,
You know,
again, these characters, they evolved over time. You know, Thunderbolt Ross, Thaddeus Ross, no exception.
now James Dean being here was kind of weird. The whole thing with Rick though is Rick, just being a kid. I was hearing a bet, I'm thinking, like right there, they're showing how dumb Rick is. Now, that being said, hanging around with with the Hulk and Captain America, by the time he gets to Marvel, I expect him to be a genius. He's picked up things from being with these guys.
He has.
But I do have to
other STDs.
I do have to stop to just point out these two panels are just like that. I mean, Kirby has a way with art, and this clearly shows it. I constantly talk about how the man struggles with faces, but when you look at that face right there, there's something to it.
Well, for one thing, it's shaded to where you don't have to look at his. What he struggles with are some of the facial features, because everybody kind of looks like one of the stone men from Saturn.
Yes.
So, but you don't have that in this panel because it's like you're seeing it through, a fluorescent lens.
Now, Jackson Roykirk pointed out when you actually see the actual Hulk, he kind of looks like Jack Kirby, or not Kirby. Not Kirby. It was the doctor right there. Talking to him. That's what it was. It wasn't the Hulk. It was
right there.
Yeah, in the bottom panel.
If it isn't going to.
Whoa.
Right there. He's got a Kirby.
Yeah, for as simple as all these panels are, like I said, it moves the story perfectly. And that's what I was saying about a week ago when I said that Jack Kirby was the best storyteller. And Ash apparently wasn't having any of that. But being able to tell a story isn't necessarily about the art talent itself. It's what you do with that talent to move a story along. The sequential art that Kirby was absolutely second to none.
Well, it's the difference between being a good artist and a good comic book artist. I mean, once again, Tim Lim, a long time ago, when he was down here, I talked about Alex Ross, and he showed me and spoke about the difference between a good artist, which Alex Ross, I don't think anybody would would argue is not a good artist, isn't a great comic book artist, because if you take away the word balloons here, you will get the story of the Incredible Hulk. There's no getting by. Just if you move past everything, you would get, okay, something happens, turns into Hulk, throws the kid away, gets attacked by the army. You get the story without the word balloons. And that is a great comic book artist.
Yeah, I just don't think there are very many people working in comics today that can do this. That's why it's almost like, short of having exposition boxes, the panels themselves, the people basically, a lot of times they're just explaining what they're doing in the panel.
Well,
here we are having lattes, and it's
yeah.
I also want to point out that just these pages, so you can go back to how to zoom out. Let's look at the entire page itself. A lot of these, there's so much more art on these pages than there is in any of the current comic books right now.
Yeah, I can't zoom out.
Well, I think everything kind of came to a head and actually was, as far as this concerned, probably in the 80s, where you had, say, Marv Wolfman putting all those word balloons over George Perez art. You could tell what was going on because George Perez is a freaking brilliant artist. And you would get all of this art, all of this, but you would get storytelling as well. What might take 1 or 2 pages in a book of even in the 60s, 70s, or 80s, nowadays would take an issue, maybe 2.
The lettering is kind of cool too, though. I like that how it's kind of slanted. And that could be because they're running out of room.
One thing I always wondered about the lettering is bold is supposed to be more emphasized, so it would be like that face. I know that face. You know, so it's a little weird with bold lettering and all that kind of stuff.
Well, it's italic too, you know, the fonts. So I mean, like it's like, especially that middle one in the panel there. It looks like he's got really smushed. He's like, oh crap, we hardly have any room.
So, do you think William Shatner just learned how to speak by reading comics? Is that
he just read the bold words.
He learned
that face.
It's more dramatic when you pause. So it must be so much more dramatic if you pause every word.
Christopher Walken did the same thing.
That's because he got hit once too many times.
But I mean, love look at how everybody was drawn back then. Plus the times, the clothing, all that stuff. Everyone was just dressed so dang nice, man. Rick Hunter looks like a little Peter Parker, but more like Shia LaBeouf dressed as Peter Parker. But this
Where does Shia LaBeouf just come into the conversation?
Go back up. Look at his hair. Look at everything. It looks like Shia LaBeouf.
Who's Rick Hunter?
Or whatever his name is, LaBeouf.
I don't know who Shia LaBeouf is. I don't know who Rick Hunter is. It was Rip Hunter, by the way. You might want to go with that, but that would be a whole different comic company.
Or Rock Hunter.
Rock Hunter.
But success has already spoiled him.
But yeah, so it's just funny how Rick looks so much older in that one panel up there, and then you look at it, you kind of look at.
There are a couple, and again, this is what I talk about with Kirby. There are panels when he looks 16,
yeah,
and there are panels where he looks 46.
Go back up, Pixel.
Yes,
the very top one, right there.
Same page. You know, the one next to the bear, he's 16. The one where Bruce is, massaging his shoulder, 46.
Popping a pimple.
That's our former president, Reagan.
Well, but I do still have to say, I think this issue might be the best I've seen of a Kirby face. Because the rest they just aren't. Yeah,
well, the other thing is that they're not like flat blockheads like you see in the Fantasy Four. They're well-rounded.
There's a good bit. Like, even Igor right here. Look at his big face. It still has something more. I don't know.
It's the Abomination.
Well, you also have to remember just how prolific Jack was as an artist. He might have only been doing 3 books a month when he was doing this. Yeah, because Marvel didn't have that much of an output yet. But I mean, he literally was drawing 4 and 5 books a month. Now, some of them were only half because he would be doing the one half of, like, say he was doing the Captain America half of Tales of Suspense, also doing Thor, also doing the Fantastic Four, maybe doing Rawhide or Two Gun or whatever Westerns were still being published. I mean, he was half the art team in those days.
So how did he guess that Puppeteen was going to be a thing? He drew him in comic form before he even existed.
There's no way to say. Maybe it just happened. Maybe Puppeteen needs to change his name to the Gargoyle.
Now, I know you've had some big books in your day. Have you ever owned Hulk number one.
Never a Hulk number one. I'm just glad I got the 102. I've never actually seen. Well, no, I've seen one out in the wild. I don't know. Do you count conventions as the wild?
Yes.
Okay, then yes, I have actually seen one. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've told the story before. Mine had a BB hole through the head. But the back cover had the exit wound, so you could actually fold it over, and the cover was pretty complete. Which it was cool to have. I mean, it was beat to death, but yeah, you talk about 102. When we had a book and record store, somebody sold me some comics, and one of the ones he sold me was I would say the Hulk 102 was probably pushing a 9.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept that for myself and put my old one in the store stock. It didn't sell because nobody came into our store to buy comics. That was what Comic Book World was for. But when I sold the collection, I sold the one in mint. And then about a year later, when I decided all I was going to do was get trades, I basically gave away my other 102.
And wait, look at him. He's like, what's his name? The guy who played Dylan on L210 at the end.
Oh yeah, I think it is kind of funny. You don't think of the Gremlin as a major Hulk villain, but then again, the Hulk doesn't exactly have the best of rogues galleries. Gargoyle, thank you. But there he is, first issue.
The Gremlin is actually a Froggy's villains.
Well, he dies, and so
he comes back.
No,
well, I'd say the Hulk has a fairly impressive rogues gallery, but he shares a lot of them. Because Sandman was in many issues of the Hulk during the earlier years.
Absorbing Man, Leader, Kang.
Well, the
and
two
Absorbing Man
mind,
originally is a Thor villain.
Yeah, the Leader and the Abomination are the big two.
Right.
Obviously. Yeah, Absorbing Man's kind of gone back and forth, but he kind of is more of a Thor villain.
Mm-hmm. Same with the Wreckers, the Wrecking Crew. They were Thor villains, but they also went against the Hulk though, and Strange, right? The
Wrecker debuted in Hulk or Thor 148.
Yeah,
it wasn't until years later that they created the Wrecking Crew. They showed up at the end of Defenders 17 or 18. I can never remember which one it was, but and now they're jokes, so who cares?
I love that group, and they are just written so bad now. It's they're like you said, they're the joke. It's issue number 18. They should not be a joke. They should be treated a little bit better. I mean, the issue I sold recently, issue number 150, you have Hell coming to collect Thor because he had been beaten by the Wrecker.
Only because Odin had stripped him of Mjolnir's enchantment, though.
Okay. Still, he should be a more serious villain.
No doubt.
I thought.
Well, the Wrecker,
and what happened in She-Hulk the other day was freaking disgusting, but we'll get back to that.
Yeah, they said that somebody that I follow who is by no means a black-pilled conservative, she said that half of the Wrecking Crew looked like teenagers.
It was not done well. It sucked.
Well, the more I'm hearing about this series, the less interested I am in watching it.
The more I'm watching it, the less interested I'm seeing another episode.
Yeah, so that's
so they kind of speculated maybe they're going to get their bulk strength, later on at the end of the series.
But it just seems like it really does seem that they are heading in a direction that's not exactly. It's like they're not really aiming anything for us anymore.
Right.
It's starting to feel that way, and we keep getting more and more examples of it. And that's fine. I got 10 good years of Marvel movies. If that's all I'm getting, that's fine. But we're not here. We're not here to talk about that.
We're going back to the Roger.
You're here to talk about Lex Luthor right here.
Look,
say
I get
Charles
it. I'm
Xavier.
bald. Oh, okay. Never mind. This guy.
I was gonna
He's
say,
bald. He's wearing green and purple. It's
blow
Lex Luthor.
myself up or form the X-Men. But no, yeah, but this is where we are talking comics. I said the Wrecking Crew was treated with respect for years, and one of the great stories that had a couple of the members of it was that Siege storyline, or Under Siege storyline in the Avengers in the 270s, where they basically beat Hercules to death, and they basically pull the plug thinking he's dead, but he turns out he's got like one heartbeat every 2 minutes, because that's how it works, I guess, on Olympus. But and I can't remember. I think it might have been the Thing or the Wrecker and Pile Driver, I think, were part of that assemblage of villains. But yeah, it's just recently. But again, modern writers, the readers they're courting, they don't want tough battles. They want one punch, pose for selfies, go have coffee. That's what the writers.
They really do love coffee in their comics,
and that's what the readers that they're courting. I guess that's what they think they want.
I mean, if we get Hulk in a car getting coffee with Rick,
Hulk's in a car getting coffee.
That's what I was thinking too.
He'd be with Jerry Seinfeld.
It all ties into Jerry Seinfeld, doesn't it?
But
what's the deal?
What's the deal with all this gamma radiation?
I don't know.
I put on a nice jacket like green. All of a sudden, I'm a green person. I gotta change my clothes. What is it with all this? Yeah, I know.
I'm big. I'm green. I'm clumsy. I'm going through puberty again.
Anywho,
I couldn't tell if he was doing Jerry Seinfeld or Scottish Jerry Seinfeld. It's like,
hey, whatever. Yeah.
Now I realize that we're not really giving a detailed accounting of Hulk 1. For those of you looking for that, just go back and watch us bastardize the first issue on Geeky Puppet Show.
Watch as two puppets and two humans just take a large dump
as they bond
Kirby's
together.
legacy.
You don't know. Miranya's the only confirmed human from that stream.
I
You
mean,
were
Fred
there.
is a frog, puppet that works under the bridge, and then there's the guy who just chain smokes. Well, yeah, it's Fred Flintstone.
Yeah.
And Miranya.
Wait,
But
there's a bridge working. Where's my money, bitch? Where's it?
It's another bridge.
as also Miranda points out, that Bruce and Rick were driving in a car in that issue.
That they were.
And because they didn't have the Vente size, he wanted the large. Damn Ventes, he hulked out.
That's
No, but I guess I do appreciate having longer books like this. There's more content, and especially if you're really enjoying the book, you're going to enjoy every little single detail they can throw in there. It's not like you're getting a Bendis. It's like, I need to end this book soon. But I also like the shorter books that have less dialogue, but still have all the art. So, like you said, like Kirby does, with less words, I could still follow the book here and know what's going on. I love those two types of storytelling.
Yeah, personally, I think the Hulk #1 was much better written than Fantastic Four #1.
I agree with this.
There's
That
no
is
doubt.
a true fact. I don't think that's an opinion. That's just a fact.
It's just a fact.
Just a fact, man.
Because I think it took Stan and Jack several issues to really coalesce on Fantastic Four. But boy, once they did.
Yeah. When do you think? When do you think the Hulk became the Hulk, and when do you think that Fantastic Four became Fantastic Four? You know what? This is a whole other video, actually.
Hulk is hard to say because the original series was so short,
Mm-hmm.
and we were talking about that before. He appeared in Fantastic Four number 12, Avengers. Yeah, he was in the first couple of Avengers, but that was down the road. Journey into Mystery 112, which was right after
Okay.
Avengers. So that's God. Depends on what Hulk you're looking for. I mean, I would say somewhere in the early days of his Tales to Astonish run.
The weird thing about Hulk to me is I, like most of the world, have memories of an absolute brainless, enraged Hulk.
Yep.
But there were issue after issue after issue of things like the Defenders and such, where he's standing around as the Hulk, very calm and having conversations. I'm thinking, and it's not Bruce Banner Hulk.
No,
It's because he's doing the me am this kind of language.
I was reading it back in those days in the mid 70s, where I think Len Wein and Joe Staten were the team on the Hulk, and Len was subtly making him a little more intelligent
Mm-hmm.
because he started using words he never used before. Because I think he would use words like taunt or it's just and I think that was something that he did by design. Now that may not have always translated over into what he was doing in the Defenders, but yeah, the Hulk was the only time he was ever a mindless rage monster was the Mantlo run that followed the Bruce Banner Hulk.
Yeah, the
When
issue
Doctor
30.
Strange,
Yeah,
yeah,
from
basically
300 up. Yeah,
298, 9, and 300. His mind was gone.
Yeah,
And that was the 3-part story that led to Doctor Strange
and
sending him into exile.
one thing in issue number 300, they literally have him killing people just by being in. Like, there's this one guy who approaches the Hulk, kills him, just hits him and kills him, and because he's completely out of his mind, and a Hulk that's not thinking can literally kill somebody just without thought,
Yeah, and John Burns Hulk when the I think Submariner, Wonder Man, Hercules, and Iron Man go to fight the Hulk.
Mm-hmm.
They said he killed thousands in one town. They've also gone back later and kind of retconned a lot of that. Where it's like, oh, wait a minute, we thought he did, but when we looked, miraculously, no one was dead.
Yeah, one thing that they have to do is and I would love to see this. I always say be careful what you wish for, but you know what I wish? Let's just reboot it. And then let's have death have meaning in comic books from here on in. Maybe something would happen. I don't know. I think one of the reasons why we're losing readers to manga and such is because there's consequences in manga that there are not in just mainstream superhero books.
Maranya brings up a good point. Fantastic Four was basically Stan saying, all right, this will give me my last story anyway. I'll just throw this out there. And so I said, and it was also his first, we talked about this too. A lot of the tropes you see in these very early Marvel superhero comics look like they like a page or two of the old monster magazines crept in.
Yep. Because
Stan had been doing those for so many years. They're like when they're trying to describe the Hulk, he was a gorilla, he was a bear. You saw that shit all the time in those.
Yeah, it was. Oh, sorry.
No, so there's Bamboo, the tree that fought like a man. It's like all those stories, and it gave us Groot.
The whole thing is that for the longest time, Marvel was out of the superhero biz, and they didn't really do well with superheroes anyway. They had Namor and they had the Human Torch, but nothing else really hit. And I mean, now we know the Blonde Phantom because they've retro and acted as if she was something big back in the day. But Marvel really did become the romance Western monster book company, while DC was kicking more ass than them, at least because the Trinity was able to survive.
They were, but that was about it though, because DC was also publishing Green Arrow and Aquaman as backup stories, but that was about it. And
Yeah,
it wasn't even so much by that time that they were superheroes. They were just kind of there. It's
yeah. It was,
'cause-
and Batman in the 50s, for the most part, went into outer space.
it's half his time in outer space. And
Yeah.
in World's Finest, there was that professor that would send them back in time all the time. And
Mhm.
so I don't know that they were doing superheroes well themselves. They were just doing the characters that had once been
Yeah, at
superheroes.
least their Trinity made it.
Yeah.
Even the duo for Marvel didn't, and things
Well-
like the Red Angel and all that kind of stuff never really
Well,
made it out.
Submariner and Human Torch were published into the mid 50s.
Mhm.
And I think there might have been a version of Captain America also, so where Apollo would come in.
They were brought back, but they weren't
Yeah.
successful. With
No,
that.
they weren't. But
Because in all the superheroes never really made the rebound until, of course, after the Flash. And if you're really going to want to split hairs, Martian Manhunter came out and wasn't all that successful until Flash kind of shined a light on superheroes again.
yeah, because he just basically he more resembled a character you would have read about in Strange Adventures.
Right. I don't know if we're getting too inside baseball, but I do know that you and I have taken over the Geeky Pup Show.
Well, I'm interacting with the
Yeah.
fans. In the
I
chat.
see it. But yeah, that's just part of it. And then, of course, the infamous story on the golf course, which, by the way, has been debunked, but I don't give a shit. I love it, so I keep going with it. About how what was it, Weisenberg and
No, it was oh God,
Goodman.
Yeah, it was Goodman, but I don't know. Was it Wise? Was it?
Yeah, it was Weisenberg and it was Schwartz, or no? Who was on the DC side?
Probably Julie Schwartz. Yeah, Weisinger
Yeah.
was the Superman editor at the time.
Okay, okay. So it wasn't him. It must have been Goodman.
Well, Martin Goodman was the Marvel side, and then
Yeah, so it was Martin
Julia
Goodman
Schwartz, maybe.
Yeah, having supposedly on the golf course, and they were, Julie. It might have been him, but they were bragging about how successful Justice League was, and so Goodman goes back to Stan Lee, who at that point is his only employee, basically, and he says, "I want you to write a superhero team, like the Justice League. Call it." Crime Busters or some stupid title like that. And so Stanley said, "Bullshit, I'm not going to do that," and of course we hear also the rumor of that. Well, Stan says it himself, that his wife told him, because he was going to quit.
Yeah.
He was tired of being a copycat, because Marvel had become a copycat company.
Yes.
Whatever was successful over at DC or Fawcett or any of those, they would do it.
And that was Martin Goodman.
They even had what was it? Homer the something ghost. What was it?
Homer the Happy Ghost.
Homer the Happy Ghost. Yeah, because Casper was successful. So Marvel was really in the tank when they did Fantastic Four, and immediately Marvel had a piece of the pie. And things like Hulk, you look at Jack Kirby's art. Jack Kirby's art is not that crisp, clean stuff we saw in Captain America anymore. They even thought that maybe the reason that Marvel is selling over DC was that the art wasn't as crisp and clean, and maybe our artists should draw worse. That's an actual quote, by the way. Maybe our artists should start drawing worse than they are right now. So as ugly as the Hulk was, they didn't understand, that there was story to it. They were actually, it was not just, hey, okay, I need to move this planet in order to, they were actually trying to get some sort of depth to the characters. And I actually think that the Hulk is one of the better books for it.
Yeah, the old DC books kind of read like SJW Marvel, because the hero's never really in any danger.
Mm-hmm.
And he generally wins in time to, if it's Barry Allen, to be late for his dinner date with Iris, or if it's Hal, to find out that Carol where he finds out he's his own competition for Carol. You know, it just kind of.
Well, they ended up making Superman. We talked about the covers and everything. They ended up making Superman their own villain. Oh my gosh, Kara, you let somebody know you were Supergirl. You are now banished from Earth. By the way, this is an actual freaking plot in Supergirl in the Superman comics. And he boots her to another planet, doesn't allow her to come back for a few weeks.
Yeah, I was looking up. For issue 6, Ditko took over instead of Kirby.
Yeah.
And now I want to see it because I've never seen a Ditko Hulk.
Ditko drew some Hulk issues in Tales to Astonish also.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to read those sometime. Or the puppets will have to read those sometime.
I'll read them and the puppets can read themselves.
You really are a one-man identity crisis, aren't you, Pixel?
Yes, I am. Okay, but we're over an hour, Bigman. So,
all right. So, that being said, of this first issue, I gotta say I've actually really enjoyed it. You know, never was really a Hulk fan, other than when the Hulk would basically come over and just do cameos with Spider-Man. You know, or you see some of the Peter David stories. So I mean, now I kind of want to go read the rest of these other 5 issues that, you know, and to see how bad they are or how good they are, you know.
he dipped his toe. He's ready for the dive.
I just want to go all in, you know. It's happened here too, the virus.
Yeah, it didn't get canceled because it got bad. So yeah, I said you'll enjoy those if you like the first.
There's
one,
an interesting, but there's an interesting story on how it got canceled. I mean, since you brought it up, no,
do tell because I've forgotten.
Okay, well, very simple. They Marvel Goodman, they wanted to create their own. They wanted to be their own distributor, but then of course, kind of started running out of money, so they went to a third party. And that company ran out of money, so the only people they could distribute through was National Publications.
Oh, I know that. Yeah.
Who was DC. So DC said, "Yeah, but we're only going to let you produce like what was it?
8 a month.
8 a month." And so they decided that instead of doing 8 monthly titles, they'll do 16 bi-monthly titles. Right. And so they had to team up a whole bunch of their heroes. So they got the ones that weren't selling the greatest, like obviously the Amazing Spider-Man, Fantastic Four was doing great on their own, and they teamed them together. So you've got your Giant Man and your Ant-Man or Wasp going along with the Incredible Hulk. And of course...
but that was years later.
No, that was that time.
No. There was a significant amount of time between Hulk number 6 and Tales to Astonish 60. Yes.
1963 is the last issue of the.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about when the Hulk joined that. Of course, that's why I started off, because it was Giant Man and the Wasp before it was the Hulk.
Right, but the Hulk had his own 6 issues.
Yeah, but it wasn't selling, so they can't.
Right, but you know, was it that it wasn't selling, or that they didn't know it wasn't selling? Or was it because they were only allowed to have the 8 monthly titles? Was it not selling as well as Patsy and Hetty Career Girls, so it got canceled? Which all those are possibilities.
But it might have been because at that point in time, a lot of people that were reading comics were reading monster movies and jungle movies, monster comics and jungle comics.
But that should have helped the Hulk, because I mean that would have appealed to monster fans.
You would think.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering what it was that,
We'll have to look into it, find out the real reason.
And find out next time.
Yeah. Hit that little ticker.
That's right. This ticker right here.
That's not a euphemism for anything, is it?
Yes. The Puppetine and Froggy, those two, overlords above us, they have asked us to ask you to like, comment, and subscribe. We want to hear your thoughts. If you haven't watched the reading, you should go do that. Those darn videos, I don't understand how more people aren't watching them, but that's just the way it is.
On the channel because they get views for us.
It's true. But
experts behind the puppets. We tell them what to do.
I'm just here for the show, man. But that's about it. Anything to chill out?
Saturday, for those of you who don't know, going over to the auction Saturday night, 8:00. Oh, here's something. If you could widescreen.
Oh,
Yeah, me
on
too.
you?
Yep.
Okay.
I got a big dog for the comic book auction.
Ooh, and it's got a Hulk in it.
That
It
is
has a Hulk.
glorious.
We have a Hulk.
That's cool.
I wonder.
It's about a 4, 5, maybe 5. around there.
72 pages for 25 cents.
That's the issue where the Avengers ask Spider-Man to join, but his test is to capture the Hulk.
There we go. And as you can see, the spine is fine.
It's
Good to
special.
know. All
Yeah.
right. So make sure
So
to
there
check
you
that out. And Breen?
I will be on the Comics Aficionados tomorrow morning on Thinking Critical. And then I will be more than likely falling asleep during the Saturday night auction at some point because I got to work in between.
Yes,
All right.
that is 8 o'clock Eastern on I Love Comics.
Good to know. So with that, make sure to check all those out. Do all that we said before, or else. And we'll see you next time.
Happy trails to
Good night, kids.
Until